27-year-old woman had suspected someone broke into her apartment, but she'd never get the chance to find out who it was until it was too late. But before we get started, welcome to True Crime with Maneater. If you love all things true crime, including missing person cases, cold cases, and just the strange happenings of the world, you've come to the right place. Be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss video upload. Let's get started. I do want to note that this case has been covered extensively, but I have wanted to cover it for multiple reasons since I heard about it. So we'll dive into that a little later. Lauren Giddings was born April 18, 1984 in Maryland. She moved to Georgia in 2008 to attend law school. Lauren was this incredibly beautiful, talented, and just wildly intelligent young woman. She was incredibly driven as she was beginning to study for the bar. She had graduated. Now she knew that she had to buckle down, she had to study, and she wanted to pass the bar on the first try. So in June of 2011, after graduation, Lauren decided to buckle down and begin studying for the bar exam, but not before telling her friends and family that she would be relatively off the grid for the next few weeks. She wanted to put all of her time, her energy, and her focus into the bar exam. And of course, for her family, they were incredibly proud of her. They knew that she was buckled down, she was studying, she was working hard, and they didn't think it was strange in any sort of way. Lauren's sister would soon realize by June 29th that she hadn't heard from her sister in a few days. And although Lauren was buckled down and preparing for this law exam, she did check in with her family and friends. So her sister Caitlin was obviously concerned, so she tried to contact her sister Lauren, but she wasn't getting through to her. So she started contacting Lauren's friends and saying, "Hey, have you heard from my sister? I can't seem to get in touch with her." And they would all say the same thing. "No, we haven't heard from her, sorry." But they did tell her, like, "Hey, we can go to the apartment and just check it out and see if she's home. She could be studying, she could be just ignoring her phone." When they got to the apartment, they realized that Lauren's car was still in the apartment complex. So they knocked on the door and they waited and they kept knocking, but Lauren wasn't answering. One of her really close friends, Ashley, knew where she kept a spare key. So she grabbed the spare key, she unlocked the door, and they went inside. When they entered the apartment, they didn't find Lauren, but they found her purse, her keys, her books that she was studying from. They didn't see any blood or any signs of a struggle, but something just felt wrong about the situation. So they called 911. When police got there, they actually sprayed luminol in the bathroom, like on the walls, on the floor, in the bathtub, and they soon realized they weren't looking for a missing person. They were investigating a murder. Investigators would quickly tape off Lauren's apartment. They realized that they needed to jump in and begin the investigation right away. They were dealing with presumably a homicide. If not a homicide, then Lauren was incredibly injured. As they're searching around the apartment, a police officer would note this incredibly terrible smell coming from the garbage bins. One of the detectives would say, "While we were standing there, the wind started to turn. Immediately, I smelled an odor that I was very familiar with. We all smell things in life that smell bad, and that of a body or a decomposing body is one of the worst things you'll smell, but it has a very distinct smell." As they look inside the garbage can, they do find Lauren's torso. The detective would say they did not find the head, legs, or arms in either of the trash cans. "I had never seen anything like that before. Who could have done this? Because truthfully, only a monster could do something like that. It was absolutely horrible." By this time, news crews had already started camping out at the apartment complex. They knew something was happening. They started interviewing people at the apartment complex. And as police have discovered the body, a resident of the apartment complex is actually giving an interview. The person giving this interview's name was Stephen McDaniel, and he had actually been a law student at the same university that Lauren attended. They were actually classmates.
Knowing now that McDaniel had murdered and dismembered Giddings, the interview provides a glimpse inside the mind of a killer as he builds his story and his alibi. Take a look.
Person that was living there?
Yeah, Lauren was my neighbor. We're just trying to find out where she is at this point. No one has seen her since Saturday. The last time anyone heard from her was an email that she sent out, and no one's heard from her since.
Did you see her hang out with anyone at the time, anything like that?
No one has seen her since Saturday. I haven't seen anything. I've always heard noise outside, but it's just people walking by pretty much.
And she just recently graduated from Mercer?
Yeah, she and I were both JD students. We graduated back in May.
What kind of person was she? What did you see her?
She's as nice as can be. Very personable, very much a people person.
Do you know any enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her?
No, we don't know where she is. The only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snatched her. Because we went over. One of her friends had a key. We went inside and tried to see if there was anything amiss, but she had a door jamb that was sitting right by it, so there was no sign that anyone broke in. The door was locked when everyone got here. We just don't know where she is.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of. I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you heard anything? Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's why we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
So Lauren and Stephen had actually been neighbors, and apparently Stephen had taken an interest in Lauren, and he asked her out, and she said, you know, I have a boyfriend, and she was very kind and very nice to him, and just said, I just can't. Eventually, detectives would hone in on Stephen, and Stephen would actually voluntarily let them in his apartment to search it. And apparently, while detectives are searching Stephen's home, they come across a master key for the apartments in that building. So they take him in for questioning. And Stephen would admit that he broke into two neighbors' homes and stole a condom from each, or something absurd like that. So red flags are going off in detectives' heads. Why would he have a master key? So as they're thoroughly searching Stephen's apartment now, they find a packaging for a hacksaw, several flash drives which contain child pornography, a pair of underwear that was later discovered to be Lauren's. And when they would search the laundry room of the complex, they would actually find the hacksaw that matched the packaging from Stephen McDaniel's apartment. They would also find a bloody sheet, and that DNA matched Lauren's. He was charged with murder, and eventually it would come to light what exactly had happened on that morning of June 26, 2011. Stephen would enter into Lauren's home using that master key. As Lauren is sleeping peacefully in her bed, she suddenly hears something and she opens her eyes, and there's Stephen McDaniel standing over her. Lauren would shout at him to get out of her apartment. I'm sure she's fucking terrified. I mean, she just woke up, there's a man standing over her, and he's wearing a mask. And she screams, get out of my apartment. And at that point, he basically attacked her. He lunged at her. They get into a wrestling match. And at this point, she's fighting for her life, and she rips off his mask. And at that point, he actually begins to strangle Lauren. He would put her body in the bathtub and then leave the apartment. And he apparently left to get that hacksaw and would return later to dismember her body. Stephen would confess to the crime, and he would even confess to stalking Lauren. He would even go as far as attaching a camera to a long stick so that he could film her while she's in her apartment. And this is through a second-story window. Apparently, Stephen did steal this master key from one of the landlords. And I just want to stop right there. If a key is stolen and you realize a key is stolen, you need to change all of the locks. I mean, that is a danger in itself. If somebody stole it or you believe it was lost, you have to take precautions. You have to absolutely change all of the locks. I don't know what happened in that scenario, if they realized it was missing, if they realized it wasn't. I feel like that's a lawsuit. That is incredibly terrible behavior. The fact that they were not protecting their residents in any sort of way. Stephen had dismembered Lauren and placed her in garbage bags and then put her in dumpsters all around. And he just assumed that obviously the dumpster would come and it would be taken. On that day, one of the police cars had backed up against one of the trash cans, and the garbage collectors couldn't actually access it, so they left it. And her body, her torso, was found. And that I wanted to cover this case, even though it's a widely covered case and many people have heard about it, they've seen it. You know, they know all of the gruesome details, but I wanted to do this for a very specific reason. Lauren had mentioned to her sister, things in the apartment just didn't seem right. Something felt off. She felt that things had been moved around and that somebody had been in her apartment. On the evening of June 25th, one of Lauren's last emails was to her boyfriend. And she mentions to her boyfriend that on Thursday, June 23rd, she feels like somebody tried to break into her apartment or had broken into her apartment. But Lauren downplayed the situation. I'm sure she was trying to make herself feel better. She said maybe it was just some hoodlums, you know, maybe they were looking to rob me, whatever, it's not a big deal. And that's why I wanted to talk about this case. Lauren was a beautiful, intelligent woman. She was fun, she was kind, she was caring, she had everything going for her. And unfortunately, she came across this one person who had the most disturbing intentions. I want to share this because I think it's so important. If you have a feeling that something is wrong, follow that gut feeling. Don't try to talk yourself out of it. If you feel that something is seriously wrong, it's okay to call the police and have them come into your apartment and look around and tell them that something is making you feel uncomfortable. I know a lot of people are very concerned about wasting police officers' time because they are busy, they have a lot of crime. I understand that. But if you have a feeling that something is wrong, don't ignore it. Follow that gut instinct. That's why I feel like this case is so important, because I don't think Lauren knew she was being stalked. Maybe she had considered it because she started to feel like somebody had been in her apartment. I just feel that as people, we tend to gaslight ourselves. We try to make ourselves feel better by saying, maybe that wasn't moved. Maybe I set it there and just forgot. Maybe I lost my key. Maybe I didn't put my purse there. We tend to do these things to make ourselves feel better. Instead, we should be taking it incredibly serious. Trust yourself. Trust that you know yourself, your home, and your environment. And the second you feel uncomfortable, please reach out to somebody. They would learn a lot of disturbing things about Stephen McDaniels. Like when they pulled up his search history on his devices, you would look at her social media and her LinkedIn a lot. And at the same time, he would be searching for violent pornography. During an interview with a detective, Stephen McDaniels is actually sitting there stone cold. He makes no movements. Apparently, he thought that if you made a lot of movements while being interviewed by the police, it made you look guilty. I just have to say, watching that video of him sitting there and barely moving as it's time lapsed is incredibly disturbing. I think it says a lot about him as a person. He's just stone cold, staring, answering. There's just something incredibly chilling about this person. And many people believe that because of the amount that went into this crime and the careful planning that Stephen did, that he was a budding serial killer. He just has all of these hallmark signs that something is very, very wrong with him. And I think it's so important that every person takes themselves seriously and listens to their gut. Don't gaslight yourself. Very much believe that what you're seeing might not be a coincidence. It might not be an accident. But that's it for today, guys. If you like this video or any other video on my channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss video upload. If there's a case you'd like me to cover, pop in the comments below and I'll get to as many of them as possible. Check out some other videos on my channel while you wait for the next upload, and I'll see you next time.